What's up, guys? Welcome back into the March into March. We got the full bracket. We have a bracket. I've been looking at it. Some tough decisions on here. We could make a whole 30-minute video on how poorly I think the committee did in terms of seeding, in terms of teams that were left out. We need the Johnnies. We need Seton Hall. We're missing a lot of quality
Virginia out of
teams.
here.
Get Virginia out of here, man. Nobody wants to watch them. But there's still some intriguing matchups here. In the East, I think is probably the region that I think I may have the best read on. I don't know. You never really know with these types of things, but it's definitely the most stacked. There's 4 conference champions here. This is part of the reason I think the seeding was so poor. I think a team like Auburn maybe should have been a 3 seed in that division or in that quadrant that has Purdue and Tennessee. Illinois is a 3 seed, feels overseeded. There's just a lot of things I could nitpick here, but overall, I think this is probably the most entertaining quadrant. Obviously, we got 4 conference champs. There's a lot of good teams here. I don't think there's going to be a lot of upsets, at least not in the earlier rounds, but we can go ahead and get started into that if you want.
Yeah, it does feel, I echo that it feels a little chalky, this region. If there's one that feels a little, the favorites really come out on top, I would think it's this region. I do have a big upset in there, which kind of bucks the trend, but yeah, let's go game to game. Let's do it.
Let's start game 1. UConn and Stetson. Hey, I love the Hatters. I'm going to give them a little love here for a second, but we all know how this is going to go. This isn't a Purdue Fairleigh Dickinson situation. UConn is on a warpath. Dan Hurley has that team focused. This is not a Purdue situation where it's just Zach Edey's not getting foul calls and a 16 seed just wills themselves to victory. I don't see this being close. I don't think anybody sees it being close. UConn should roll in this one.
Thanks for being or cashing our futures, our conference tournament futures, Stetson.
Yes,
you will forever be in our debt, but you're going to lose by 30.
So this is a game that I've struggled with, Florida Atlantic and Northwestern. It's a game that I've finally just said I'm not going to waste that much time on because I'm not going to have the winner advancing past UConn. Spoiler alert. It really boils down to FAU has the experience, FAU has the coach, and Northwestern has Boo Buie.
Yeah, both really good guards in this game. It should be a very fun guard matchup. I agree with choosing Florida Atlantic. That's my pick also. I just trust the coach, who I think is probably better. I like both coaches, but Dusty May is kind of a class above right now. Really like the roster. Obviously, the experience is there. The guys are back. Were they a little bored during the regular season? They were up and down. This is the time I think they're going to start to put it together.
I think the American improved as well. I think that was part of it.
They did. No, they did. The American was a much better conference this year. I'm fine with Florida Atlantic being a 2 seed in that region or in that conference. The big key for me here is Vlad Golden. We all learned who he was last year in their run, the big 7-footer inside. And Northwestern, for all the guards they have, Boo Buie and Barnheiser and guys like that, they don't have a solid big man. I think Golden should eat in this game a ton of rebounds. They should dominate inside. I don't know how Northwestern's going to stop them in the paint. That really is what it boiled down to for me in this one. So I took Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand. This is another matchup I've struggled with. Let's keep it in the American. We got the American champion, the UAB Blazers, a 12 seed against San Diego State, the 5 seed. UAB shot absolutely lights out, but come on, they were playing a Temple team that's been accused of point shaving this year. If we're just being frank. UAB has a very porous defense, but they could score. They could pour it in, and they have good guard play. And you can win some games in March like that. So I'm definitely not sleeping on them. But if you remember, if you watched this last year, which I assume if you're watching it this year, you probably watched it last year, considering we did very well on these predictions.
We did. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. And if not, welcome in, because we picked UConn absolutely out of nowhere last year. But San Diego State was a team I faded early. I had them losing to Charleston, and of course they went on to make the Final Four. I don't think I'm going to make that mistake again this year. I'm going to go ahead and stick with San Diego State. I'm going to trust their defense. I'm going to trust the run that they made last year. I'm sure they brought a few guys back. UAB, hey, they might get hot. They might go crazy, but I don't think people realize how quickly teams can cool off in college basketball. Sometimes when you win 5 games in 5 days, that's kind of what it takes, is playing 5 days in a row. So I'm just not too sold on UAB. Gaines is awesome. I mean, he's going to be one of the most electric players in this entire tournament, but I'm going to stick with San Diego State here.
Yeah, and I like San Diego State also. They did bring back a lot of that roster. Jaden Ledee, Lamont Butler's back. Parrish is back. They're playing well. I like the experience of this San Diego State team that obviously made the run last year. Defensively, they are stout. I mean, they're tough. It's going to be tough for UAB to score. Who you mentioned, UAB, you played Temple, who Cinderella run 5 games in 5 days. UAB was a good team in the American, but they were definitely teams better than them.
Not as good as that Jelly Walker team that made
Not as good as
that
the
run
Jelly
in the
Walker team.
NIT. No.
Yes, absolutely agree. These are both really good offensive rebounding teams. There should be a lot of offensive rebounds. The one worry that I would have with San Diego State, which I don't think will show itself here, but could show itself in games down the road, is their offense has a tendency to go into some scoring droughts. They, which we have seen with our loving Georgia Bulldogs.
Hey,
That
NIT baby tonight, 7 p.m.
we just go a few minutes without scoring. That could be a problem. I don't think it'll be much of an issue in this game. San Diego State's the better team, the better coach, the better conference, and I'm going to take San Diego State too.
Yeah.
To get past. I actually like them too. -7 in the game. I bet the -7.
They have a DNA of a team that I hate in March, but in this game, I think I'm going to trust them. If this was, if this was a different 12 seed, if this was JMU, I'm all over JMU. I might be on JMU anyways. I haven't really made my mind up yet. I might let you talk me into one way or the other. But if this was JMU, I'm all over them. But I think UAB is probably the worst of the 12 seeds. I think that's a pretty safe thing to say. So I'm going to stick with San Diego State.
Yeah.
The next matchup, too, another 13 seed. I hate that this is the draw they got. We've already talked about it, but Auburn and Yale. I think Yale's a really good basketball team, but man, I think Auburn is another team like UConn that's just on a warpath, and I don't see them getting tricked up this early by a team out of the Ivy League. Which, granted, you probably could have said that last year about Princeton, but Yale's a tough customer. I think Auburn's one of the deepest teams in the country. Great offense, great defense, plays very balanced basketball. I think they're going to be focused, and I think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, Yale is not as good as that Princeton team last year. No. And we watched – did you see the Ivy League tournament? I mean, they almost lost to Brown. It was a monumental choke by Brown in the Ivy League championship. So Yale's in some way lucky to be here. The best thing about Yale is that they really take care of the basketball. They do not turn the ball over. That kind of has come against some weaker competition. We saw in one game they played Fairfield. Fairfield really pressed them and really made them hurry up, and they absolutely peed down their leg. They had no idea
what Auburn likes to do.
Auburn's going to do the same exact thing. This is, the best team they're going to play this year. So I will go with Auburn too. Very deep, very physical team. I like the makeup of Auburn's roster, and I see some people picking Yale. I don't, Yale might keep it close for a half. I'm not going to freak out if it's tied at halftime or anything. I do trust Auburn to pull away. With that being said, if Auburn comes out and they're 2 for 15 from 3, and maybe Broom has 2 fouls, then obviously anything can happen. But I will take Auburn. Yeah.
Those Ivy League, Yale and Princeton very similar. They like to fill it up. They like to shoot from outside. But I think defense-wise, they have a lot to be desired. Clearly going to be overmatched athletically. So, I like Auburn in this game. Even if they play a C game, they should still be able to win this.
Yeah, agreed.
This is I'm going to go ahead and let you go on this because I don't have that much to say. But I have BYU over Duquesne. I know you are trending towards Duquesne. If you'd like to give some rationale behind that, I'm going to give you the floor.
I've flipped back and forth on this. First of all, this is we're going to point out the examples where the committee really screwed up. This was
supposed to be VCU, effort. By the way. This is where VCU was supposed to be.
Yeah, we're going to put VCU at the 11. They lost. Well, I guess we'll just put Duquesne there. That's not really how it works. Duquesne I think is more of like a 13-ish.
A 13, yes.
And so my original thought was Duquesne overrated. A10, not that great this year. A10 tournament, not that great. A lot of Cinderella runs going on there. So I said BYU, as hit or miss as BYU is, I'm going to take BYU. And I looked into it a little bit more, and I was like, maybe Duquesne actually can make this interesting because it obviously helps if BYU is going to miss threes. Duquesne's super experienced. I mean, they got a lot of guys, older guys that not necessarily have been to the tournament, except for, I think, Drame, who was on the St. Peter's team a few years ago. But just older players, which I like. I think Duquesne can cover this game and keep it close, like from a betting standpoint, that they can keep it close. I'm going to stick with BYU, though. BYU is a good team, and obviously the threes, it depends on the threes a lot if they go in. But Duquesne relies so much on their 2 best players. I can't remember their first names. Grant and Clark are their last names. They're 2 great players, but the ball's in their hands all the time. There's a lot of ISO ball going on, and BYU will make it tough on them to score. BYU will move the ball around a lot and obviously take a lot of threes. And I just think that's going to be too much. It's going to make it hard for Duquesne to ugly up a game like that with BYU moving it around. I like to stay away from the high variance teams. We're going to get to, Alabama and all these teams. But I'm going to trust BYU here, I think, to beat Duquesne. Don't be surprised if it's really close late, even if it's like BYU by 3. I think it has the potential to be a really good game. But I will take BYU. Yeah.
Yeah, BYU is a heavy volume. I think they might actually take the most threes in the country. And when it's bad, oh, buddy, it's bad. We've been burned on them a few times. And that's why I do think Duquesne is much more of a possibility than everybody thinks, especially because that's not a trendy upset pick. I don't think it will be a trendy upset pick come game time. I really haven't heard anybody say it except you. But the fact of the matter is they're a fickle bunch. And if they're not making threes, they're not going to be playing well. We've seen it firsthand many times.
Yeah, Duquesne plus 9.5, by the way, is the line. I think they can cover that and keep it close.
One upset pick that is a little trendy, though, is this next one. We've got the 14, the 14, right? Yes, the 14 seed Moorhead against the 3 seed Illinois. I thought I had that right the first time. Illinois, obviously, electric scoring. I kind of think they should have been a 4 seed. That's neither here nor there. Terrence Shannon been a very good player since he got back from some of his off the court troubles. But Illinois is a very bad defensive team. And the fact of the matter is Moorhead State is a team that's going to try to ug this game up. They're going to try to slow it down, and they're going to try to keep Illinois from getting out and running. Will it be successful? I don't really know. Neither of these teams take a lot of threes, and neither of these teams defend the 3 very well. They're both very average in that metric. So this is one of those games that I think Moorhead State can keep close. Am I going to pick them to win? No, but I can kind of see why some people are picking this for an upset. But in terms of athletes, I mean, Illinois is clearly going to overmatch them athletically. So that's the risk you take, when you pick these types of games.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Illinois, actually, looking at some of the metrics, they kind of flip-flopped with Auburn. I think Auburn's the 3rd best team in the region based on some of the numbers, which isn't a huge deal, but probably speaks to the fact that maybe Illinois could have been a 4 seed. The Illinois defense is bad. That's been the one problem with them. As good as their offense has been, their defense just absolutely leaks oil all over the place.
They're a lot like Baylor in that aspect, a different 3 seed who I do not trust to make a run because of their defense.
Yeah, the defense is the question, and it's hard to feel safe. Like, it's Kentucky-ish almost. Opponents shoot the 3 ball really well against Illinois. They give up threes and high percentages of threes. Moorhead will not be afraid to shoot threes at all. And
Illinois also forces a lot of turnovers, and Moorhead is not a team that turns the ball over.
Moorhead will be good with the ball. I think Moorhead will be fine. Moorhead 335th in tempo. I mean, Moorhead is going to absolutely slow this game down. We're going to play a half-court game. We're not going to get into your tempo and your full court game. They're going to slow it down, and I tend to think in a fast tempo versus slow tempo, when that's a game like that, it favors the slow tempo team. We'll see another team later on in the bracket that I like with that. But Moorhead will take threes and will make threes, and Illinois will leak threes. The Big Ten, kind of iffy this year, was Purdue and everyone else. I wasn't always sold on the Big Ten that much. 3 straight Big
Ten conference champions are not a great indicator of success in this tournament. So
no, exactly. And the last 3 Big Ten tournament champions have lost the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. Purdue last year, Iowa before, and Illinois before that. Illinois is great on rebounding. They're gonna get a ton of rebounds in this game, and that's okay. I'm gonna take Moorhead State to beat them just because I don't trust the defense at all, and I think it's absolutely realistic that Moorhead starts off the game like Moorhead. The key for Moorhead here is you've got to start the game hot. Like if they can hang around for the first 10 minutes, the first 15 minutes, I think that sets the tone. If Illinois, the tempo gets way ahead of Moorhead and Illinois builds the lead, the game I think is going to be over. Moorhead could come back by shooting threes, but I'm going to take Moorhead State to win. I think it's, it's an upset. It's some people are starting to pick it. I get it. I'm going to take.
This Moorhead, is also one place I am with you though. 14 points is I think far too many.
I think Moorhead covers. I like the spread there for sure.
Unless Illinois comes out and they shoot, which is completely possible. They come out and they shoot 68%. All right, whatever. That's just the end of that. But
they've relied so much, Illinois, on Shannon scoring a lot. Damask has been great. It's like they've got to go get a ton of buckets for Illinois to win. That just might not be sustainable, especially against a team. If Moorhead comes out and is 6 of 8 from 3 and they're slapping the floor after they hit a 3 and it's a tie game, like you can see it happening. I think that's the way Moorhead stays in the game. But Illinois leaking threes and Moorhead taking and making threes, I think is a good recipe. And this was the one, I think 1, 2, 3 seed where I really looked and was like, I can definitely see the path there. And look, it's, I'm taking a 14-point underdog. It's an NCAA tournament. It's a little bit of a reach. It always is going to be, but I will take Moorhead. I think Moorhead goes the next round.
Well, here's one of the things too, and this is the last thing we'll say about this game. This is an Illinois team that I've just said that I'm not taking very far in this tournament. So if they don't win this game, that's okay because I don't have them winning in the next round. So either way, it doesn't matter to me. And I like the upset. I like the pick because I got an upset too. Look, this is a little bit more square, but come on, I've been watching these guys all year. I believe in the MVC. Give me the Drake Bulldogs to beat Wazoo. Wazoo, a team that was on a bit of a downward trajectory at the end of the year. Started off really strong last year. The Pac-12 didn't have a good showing in the tournament. Drake, Tucker DeVries, he's going to be the golden child of this tournament, if you will. I really like Drake. What can I say? I liked Indiana State before. Unfortunately, another team that should have been in. Unfortunately, before they were left out. I think this Drake team is really talented. They have pretty explosive on offense, respectable defense too. 75th in Ken Palm and adjusted defensive rating for a team that's a small school team as good as they are offensively. I think they're a very skilled team. I think this is probably my favorite early pick, and I'm not done with Drake yet. Spoiler alert.
I will agree with you. I think Drake is probably one of my best bets for the first round. I took them plus 1.5. They're now minus 1.5.
I got them in a pick 'em. Yeah.
Little worried that everybody's betting them, but like we say, you see teams in the tournament, everyone's going to pick, and they still end up winning. I do love Drake in the matchup. I think Drake is the better team. And you mentioned last year, Drake. They played Miami in the first round. Drake had a lead with 2 minutes left, a pretty decent lead. I want to say 8 points, and absolutely blew it. Tucker DeVries was horrible in the game. It feels like one of those where they're in their locker room before and they say, we were here last year, and we're not going to mess it up like we did last year. I think they're out for revenge here.
Far inferior opponent, too, by the way. That's a Miami team that went to the Final Four.
They went to the Final Four.
This Wazoo team is not going to the Final Four.
I think Drake, what were they last year? A 12 seed or a 13 seed, maybe?
And I think they would have been a 13, maybe. So, I want to say 13 sounds right.
And if you go back, we mentioned this on the Pac-12 tournament pod, Wazoo was a 2 seed, but kind of came in limping into the tournament. They had 2 really bad losses. They should have lost to USC. They just weren't clicking on all cylinders coming into that tournament. And it's the same thing here. I mean, their only tournament win was they beat Stanford because Stanford was horrible from 3. Then they lost to Colorado. Bart Torvik, a great metric site. We will mention that a lot. Bart Torvik, the last calendar month, has Washington State 46 and Drake 50. I mean, these two teams are close. Drake is hot. They're 8-1 the last month. They've beaten some good teams. They beat Indiana State in the conference tournament. The other thing is, like, Drake, one thing they do poorly is they give up a lot of threes, but Washington State is not a team that's going to take a lot of threes. I don't think that's going to burn them that much.
Yep.
And Drake is really good about turnovers. They hold onto the ball. They don't force a lot of turnovers. And they're 76% from the free throw line. I love looking at the free throw percentages because those are obviously so key in a close game. Wazoo's at 70%. Drake has the edge there. And then the best stat, Drake, I think, is the best team in the country in defensive rebounding. They are one of the best teams crashing the glass. They should dominate the glass in this game. And I think Tucker DeVries is the best player. It all points towards Drake for me. So
it was going to be Robbie
Avila,
but now it's going to be Tucker DeVries.
He's NIT Robbie Avila now.
Exactly. The last game, this is another upset pick I've kind of seen, and I understand the rationale behind this one a little bit more. South Dakota State and Iowa State. I do think Iowa State is going to win. But careful. The very telling stat: a team that has not been ranked in the preseason top 25, that is a 2 seed in this tournament. They typically do not win more than 2 games. I think they've never made a Final Four. Typically, don't win 2 games. I don't have Iowa State losing yet, but I can see why. Because a 15 over 2 is almost becoming guaranteed at this point. We're really starting to see a lot of these, and I think if you want a 15 over 2, this might be your game.
It could be. I'm going to take Iowa State too. They're 16-point favorites, whatever it is. I did look into some of the numbers on the game. It does feel like there is a path. Like if we Thursday night are sitting here, we're like, holy shit, how did Iowa State just lose? The path would be that South Dakota State is a very good 3-point shooting team. They will run and gun. They will take a lot of threes, and they will make a lot of threes. Iowa State does really well at taking 3-pointers away, so it's more of a strength for a strength thing. But South Dakota State, actually, the numbers wise, is a much better rebounding team than Iowa State is. And I know they played at the Summit League, kind of a bummy schedule, but a really good rebounding team that they should be able to win on the glass. the
There's
case
going to
for
be a
South
lot of
Dakota
recency
State.
bias on behalf of Iowa State, considering they just spanked Houston like they
Yeah,
did.
yeah, there is, and look, Iowa State's a great team, and the defense is incredible.
Great teams losing
The
marks all the
offense,
time.
the offense looked good, but the offense has a tendency to go through some bad stretches. If South Dakota State comes out and they're hitting a lot of threes, and the crowd's hyped, and they're clapping, and they're up by 10 because they just hit a bunch of threes, Iowa State's got to take a timeout. That's the path for the Jackrabbits to win. I don't think it's going to happen. I may have it in like one of my, second or third bracket just for fun because I feel like there's a world it could happen. But I do like Iowa State a lot, a really good team. I think Iowa State's going to go to the next round for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But if you're on South Dakota State spread, I'm not going to call you a maniac. I think that's a solid pick. Let's run through these. I think we're actually pretty aligned on these, so we can actually talk about these hypotheticals. A UConn FAU matchup. I already mentioned. I've got UConn advancing. I don't think they're gonna. I think they're not going to be challenged until they reach Auburn. They essentially have a bye until the Elite Eight.
Yeah, UConn for sure. In that one, we both have Auburn, San Diego State in the next one. Yeah, I'll take Auburn in that one. I think it has the potential to be a pretty decent game.
Yeah,
Auburn is the best team in the country in 2-point percentage defense. They do not allow a lot of twos. They're really good defending the mid-range and the paint. And like I said about San Diego State, they can go on those scoring droughts sometimes. The offense can get a little lackluster and a little dull. And Auburn will be able to take away the two. San Diego State's not going to shoot threes, not going to beat a team with threes. I like Auburn a lot. Like I said, they're deep. I think they can. They'll go on and play UConn.
yeah, and then an interesting matchup next: BYU and Morehead State. A lot of the things that we just said about Illinois apply to BYU as well. Frankly, maybe a little more spread out in terms of their scoring, but I would take BYU in that one. I already have a couple other high seed teams moving on. So I'm hedged a little bit there in the terms of the Illinois game. If Illinois doesn't end up winning, I still have BYU advancing.
Yeah, me too.
That's really where this part of the bracket gets a little cloudy. And then I think my biggest upset is I'm going to take Drake over Iowa State. I think I like Drake to make a run, man. I'm sorry. I've been saying it all year. It's one of the things where Florida Atlantic was that team for me last year. You can go back and watch. You can go back and watch when we recorded it last year. Florida Atlantic was that team for me last year, and I backed off of them last minute in favor of Memphis. And Memphis made the run that I thought Florida Atlantic was going to make. Not all the way to the Final Four, but I think I did have them in the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16. So I'm going to take Drake to keep moving on, keep dancing, and then I'm going to take him to beat BYU. So I'm going to have him in the Elite Eight. I got Drake.
Okay. I don't hate the Drake over Iowa State pick at all, which would be a really cool game, by the way, just because two schools are close.
Yeah, in Omaha. Yeah.
The fans will be crazy for that game, and it could be a really good game. I've heard other people say Drake beats Iowa State. I'm going to take Iowa State against Drake. I think that's a really good game, though. We both have BYU going on, so I'm going to take in the Sweet 16. I'm going to take BYU to beat Iowa State because – look, it's all about the threes with BYU, like we said. But BYU beat Iowa State earlier in the season by 15 in Provo and then went to Ames, which is becoming kind of a fortress, a place you do not go and win. And BYU lost a really close game. They played them really tight. I think it's a matchup that favors BYU. And like I said, the ball movement is really good. Their shooting is good. This is it's high variance. I mean, they could come out and just be ice cold against Duquesne, and then we're screwed.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna try to trust it the best I can. I'll take BYU to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, no, and I like that pick too because we talk. There's always a seed. There's always a seed above a 5. BYU sitting on the 6th line. I think they could be that team. If they're hot enough. But the problem is sometimes they're just not. And then of course what I think might end up being the game of the tournament, UConn against Auburn. I am going to take UConn. If you have Auburn, I'm not going to argue with you because I think this is going to be a fantastic game.
Yeah.
But UConn is just such a force. I think this is going to be best on best. I think this could have been a national championship matchup, which is why I really wanted Auburn on that other side of that Purdue bracket. I think this would have been a fantastic national championship. We get it in the Sweet 16. I am going to stick with UConn. Of course, I'm going to take UConn over Drake. I don't feel like I don't have to talk about that, but I'm all ears with whatever you got in a hypothetical.
No, I think outside of Marquette and Creighton, Auburn is probably UConn's hardest game since like November. I mean, I think Auburn can really challenge UConn because, like I said, Auburn is great in the paint. They've got the bodies to throw around. You got to be a deep team, and Auburn's about 10 guys deep. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that can play and a lot of guards like your Holloways and your Denver Jones and your Katie Johnsons. They're physical enough to hang with UConn. I think that's going to be a really great game, and I'm gonna have a bracket where Auburn beats UConn in that because I'm just trying to think, like
I mean, that's probably
everyone's
what, a
taking
2-point
UConn. I'm
spread.
trying to
This
think
is
of a
this is not going to be a big spread.
not going to be a big spread, and everyone's taking UConn. I'm going to try to think of a world where UConn can lose, and if there's a world, it would be to this Auburn team. But I will take for my number one overall bracket, I will take UConn. I've got UConn BYU. I'll take UConn in that one too. I think UConn's good. I
Yeah,
hate to be like everybody else with UConn in the Final Four. It's just so hard.
look, man,
This
I've
team
seen
is
what I've seen.
historically good.
I've seen what I've seen, man.
Yeah,
Donovan Clegg and Tristan Newton, these guys are just that good, and it's one of the things to where, yeah, you could say, oh, it's cliche. Well, it's cliche for a reason. It's cliche because they're the best team, clearly. But I think that Auburn game is going to be their biggest challenge. I think if they win that, I don't think anybody beats them.
yeah. And look, this UConn team, we haven't seen obviously a team go back to back since the Florida team, and I can't remember like a defending champion that followed up the next year as this good as
Hasn't
UConn
been
is. I
many.
mean, they're that good. So I don't hate having them in the Final Four at all. I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can call it a square pick. I call it smart money.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's going to do it for the East region. Next, we're going to tackle my least favorite region so far, the South. This region makes me want to throw up. I really don't even have that much to say about it, but we're going to do our best. Keep it here. We're going to continue the march into March. Thanks for joining.